Okay, you're going to see in the week 3 exercises, you've got a composition where the vanishing point is going to be somewhere off your page. So in this case, you've got to figure out where the vanishing point is, and it's not going to be, right there or 2 point like this, like your first assignment. So now we got to think outside the box, quite literally. So I've printed out the assignment, and I really suggest you do that. Just print it out, and you can draw right on it to find vanishing point. And I've taped it up on a piece of paper because it may just be off of here. We'll find out. So, as you know, 1 point perspective, the vanishing point is a continuation of the oblique lines into infinity until they meet each other. So, I hope you can see. I've just lined up that one, drawn this orthogonal line, this oblique side of the box, continued that. I'm going to do the same with all the others. Let's do this one here. Okay. This one here. It's a little tough because it's small. You could cheat it a little. Looks about like that. I'll try this one. May not be exact, but we're essentially going to pick one. Let's say the vanishing point is here. Now, when we recreate this drawing, we know approximately where our vanishing point is going to be in relation to the composition. So then let's take this idea, and we could say, I hope you could see that. Let's say I'm going to measure this big box just by looking, if my eye is behind the camera here, I'm going to take my thumb and say, oh, the box is about like that. Keep transferring that up. There's 2 boxes. 3 boxes, 4 boxes. It looks like, if I can do this, my horizon is about 1, 2, 3. See? 3.5, about 3.5 of these boxes high. So I'm going to keep that in mind. Now I'm going to go to a clean sheet now that we have our vanishing point, and we're going to transfer this over. Okay, we're going to start roughing in some proportions. I've taken our picture plane and shrunk it down, since we know that our vanishing point is somewhere off of our paper, off of what would be our paper. So I shrunk it down so we could still include it in our composition. So first of all, I'm looking at this, and I'm trying to decide where our center of vision is. And I determined that by taking a look at the oblique lines. Now we know from our reading that anything on the left side of our center of composition is going to sort of lean into the center, and anything on the right side is going to lean into the center. And by that I mean these angles are all going to point to the center of vision, which our vanishing point is on. So we can tell by looking at whether this angle heads right or left which side the center of vision is going to be on. And since this leans to the right, we know our center of vision is going to be just around there, which is in basically the middle of the composition. So I'm going to go ahead and draw us a center of vision. Right about in the middle. And just very lightly. I don't know if you can even see it. I can see it. And I'm working on newsprint because this is just practice. Now I'll start roughing in the front planes of these boxes in relation to the page and the center of vision. So I see this first box does cross the center of vision, and that's the only one that crosses. I'm also going to see where the top, I don't know if you can see that, where the top edge of this box is. Turns out that's about right in the middle, horizontally, of our page. So I know that top box is going to be around here. And I'm just roughing it in really lightly, really quick. I'm taking a look at this space under the box to the edge of the paper, comparing it to the overall height of the paper, and see it's about here. So I'm just working very roughly. Now I'm looking at this edge of the box, and I see it's about halfway between half. So about, I'm going to put it about here. So let's see if you can see that. I've just roughed it in. I mean, you could barely see it, but that's how I'm going to work, because later I'm going to go over it with a straight edge and get it nice and squared up. Now I'm going to do the rest with these boxes. Again, I'm taking some basic proportions by measuring, and this is why I talk about working upright, because I'm standing and my arm is outstretched and I'm using my thumb on the pencil to line my eye up and sort of measure things out in relation to other objects. I'm looking at the height of that box, and I see that it's about half of the height of this box. I'll use that later by taking that measurement of this box and then thinking, oh, about half, and that's going to be the height of my box up there. So I'm going to go ahead and rough this one in. And I know that this box is slightly taller than this one. It's taller by about 1.5 times. Okay, this box, this big one, is going to fall to the left of our center of vision, and not too far over, and it looks to be about right in the middle between the left edge and the center. We could see that the distance between the center and the left edge is about the same. We're looking at the height. We see it's lower on the page on the bottom than it is on the top. It's higher than this one. We're going to put it about here. It's perfectly square. All right. Smaller one in front. We see that the one in front is just about centered between the one and behind it. The front edge is slightly higher than this box. And it fills up about half of the larger box behind it. Okay, the last box, that small one, and I'm just doing the front planes of these, the facing planes, because these planes, as we know in 1-point perspective, are going to be completely horizontal and vertical. Remember, we said it was about half this height. So if you can see, I've got my boxes very lightly roughed in. Now I'm going to go over them with a straight edge and fill them in so they're nice and straight. Okay, so I've taken Prismacolor and I've filled in with a straight edge just the front planes of the boxes. And look, it's not cheating to use a straight edge. I mean, we use the tools we have. Cheating would be copying off somebody or putting your name on someone else's work or tracing something. But hey, you know, we get it done any way we can. So this is 1-point perspective, so all of these verticals are vertical, all of the horizontals are horizontal. Every horizontal is parallel to each other. And look, I messed up in spots. It's not the cleanest. But there we go. We've started with the front planes. Earlier we said the vanishing point is going to be about 3.5 of these large boxes high. So let's find it. There's 1, 2, 3.5. Turns out it's going to be up here. Alright, on this one, it turns out my vanishing point is all the way even off my practice paper. But as we know, it's going to line up with our center of vision. So I'm making an X right there. That's officially my vanishing point now, no matter what. So now I'm just going to draw some orthogonal lines and connect the corners to the vanishing point. And I'm going to do it very lightly in pencil. And I don't have to go all the way. I mean, I can, but I don't have to. I know that all I need is this much, because that's a very shallow box. So all I need is that much. This one I need a little more. Put it about there. Okay, our original, the oblique that we started with was that one. And here we go. And that's the one that told us what side of center we're on. And we know that we're not going to see this side of this cube. Yes, we've got a very shallow angle, but we're still not going to see it because this oblique points to, and there goes my phone. Alright, what was I saying? So I'm bringing the obliques up to the vanishing point. And see, since this one is so close to the center of vision, it's a very shallow angle. Same with this one. The further away you get from the center of vision, your angles are deeper. Closer to the center of vision, they are more straight. It's more straight on, they're more shallow. This is just an extra piece of paper. So I've filled in all the oblique lines we're going to need, all the orthogonal lines that get us to the vanishing point to be able to finish this composition. So now I'm going to find our top planes and side planes of each box. And I'm going to do that by taking a look and just seeing how shallow some of these really are. This one's not very high. About that. And it looks like we have a little bit of side. the side's going to drop down right from the point the back of your top plane ends. So that's easy. Okay, this top plane looks to be about this top plane of this box here in front looks to be about 2, 3, 4, 5, about 1/5 of this box. So let's see, 1, 2, 3, a little shorter. This is 4, 5. About there. We see it doesn't reach the top of this one. My proportions are a little bit off, and that's okay. This back one, we see a lot of the top because it's deep. And we see this top lands just about half of this box. About there. This one's very shallow. But we don't see much of this side at all, do we? Now I'm going to take a straight edge and fill that in. Okay, I've filled in our obliques. Oh, you know what? Let's make it glass. You guys hear me talk about, and I'll say on the homework, make glass boxes. So I'm going to make these glass. You can make anything transparent or glass, like I said. Just by following the same steps, finding those orthogonals, those obliques. Because they work on the inside as well as the outside. The further away from center, the deeper the angle gets. Now we simply drop our verticals down from the back corners till they meet our obliques. Extend them horizontally, and we have found our rear plane, our bottom plane, our side plane that you can't see if this was solid like it is here. When you can see through it, then you can see these planes. So I want you to do this on homework for now. At the point the vertical and the oblique meet is the back plane. And you'll see the further from the lower from the horizon line, the more of this plane you see. You see more of this bottom plane than the top plane. See? You see that much of the top plane? You see this much more of the bottom plane. It becomes shallower and shallower as you go up towards the vanishing point. The lower down you would see much more of the top plane because your angle is looking down on it. This one is so shallow because it's close to the center of vision that you can barely make out that plane. But now you're seeing this side plane from the inside, from this side. But it's barely there. This one, since it's the furthest, probably the furthest plane away from the center of vision you're going to see the most of. So I'm just dropping that back vertical down till it meets till it meets that oblique. And here's this left plane of that. Now we know that the back plane ends there.
Or thereabouts, not always perfect. Here's the one that's going to be very shallow.
I'm doing this quick. Go ahead and use a ruler. That's the back of that one, or the bottom of that one. You know that rear plane ends right there. And that makes sense because this is in front of this box. Physically, this is like a thin, almost like carton. I'm going to fill them in with Prismacolor. Okay, now what? Well, that was just practice. That's just newsprint. We're going to transfer this to good paper. Okay, so what we made is a thumbnail. It's a practice image. And now we're going to put this, we're going to fill this composition, we're going to fill this paper with this composition. And we do that the exact same way we started with this. We're just going to start to estimate. We'll go ahead and find our center of vision. Well, it's about the center of the page. We'll go ahead and figure out where that box lies. We'll take some proportion. By looking, again, lining it up like that, seeing that it's about 7/8 down the paper, down here somewhere. The left edge is on the left side of our center of vision. It's about there. We know it finishes about halfway on the paper, about there. Take a look, step back, take a look and see if it's a perfect square. We've got this one roughed out. Work from there. This big one, boom. Further from the bottom than it is the top. We just rough it out. Now, we don't have a vanishing point here. Let me do this really quick and just use these couple boxes as an example. So, okay, very rough, and don't, this is very rough. So I'm going to go ahead and use a straight edge. About there. About there. Let's see, that's that. You're going to spend more time lining it up. I've got a bad arm, and that's a story for a different day. Alright, we don't have a vanishing point on this page. And our vanishing point would be way up here. Can you see that far up? Yeah, it'd be way up here. So how do we work that? This was just practice. We don't need to make constructive lines when we do our finished composition. And you'll hear about constructive lines for the rest of your drawing career. We don't have to do those on this. We have our angles already. Let's take a look at this front box. And I don't know if you're seeing it from the same way I am. But hey, Got an angle like that. That's about right. Maybe too shallow or too deep. We're just going to look and take a look at our angles. Now, we know in our heads that all these angles are going to converge upwards this way. So what we have going on is if we were to have many angles, they're all going to gradually point to that imaginary vanishing point, which is way up here. So we don't even have to technically draw them out on our final thing. We know that the further edge is going to be a steeper angle than when they're in close. So we can rough this in, right? We know this box, it's going to be lower, but we know we've got a box here. We know this is further out. I hope you can see this. Shit. In case you can't see that. Our angles are going to gradually change and head to this imaginary vanishing point that's way off our page. So if we're drawing a box here, we know this angle is going to be steeper than this angle because of its distance from the center of vision, which we've placed about there. So by measuring angles with our pencil and with our eye, we can start to transfer them over to the final composition, which obviously I've ruined, but I'm just trying to explain this to you. We can start to see the whole thing moving towards the vanishing point. And that's the point of making thumbnails first. Because then if I didn't do all this crap all over it, I just did that so you could see. Which, can you? Yeah, you could see that. You would start to get in and refine those angles. Refine those lines. For your final composition. So that's just an idea of how to get your thumbnail onto your final composition without having to draw these imaginary orthogonal lines and without having to have your vanishing point on the paper. Because it's not here, because that would be extreme angles. It's way up here somewhere, as we learned when we did the very first part of this exercise where we taped this paper to there. Always print out your stuff. Print it out and you can draw right on it and find these lines. Find these angles. I hope that helps.